Welcome to the webinar. My name is Janice Sabett, and I'm a family support consultant with the Vermont Family Network. Our topic today is advocating for your child. As Dr. Ross Green, child psychologist and acclaimed author of the books Explosive Child and Lost at School, so poignantly puts it, children do well if they can. If they can't, we as adults need to figure out why so we can help. Parents are natural advocates for their children. You are your child's first teacher, most important role model, and are responsible for your child's welfare. You know your child better than anyone else. As a parent, you are your child's best advocate for his health care, education, and overall development. We advocate for our children in many different arenas, including school, the community, social settings, medical teams, and within our own families. Today we will define advocacy and offer some tried and true suggestions on effective communication techniques. I would like to emphasize that these are suggestions since we recognize that each of us and our situations are unique and there is no one way to advocate effectively. Our intent is to offer some food for thought, perhaps to prompt a new idea or strategy that you might like to try, but not in any way tell you what we think you should do. We are parents ourselves, and as such, our goal is to share ideas so that you can decide what works best for you and your family. In our work at Vermont Family Network, we hear from and support thousands of families and professionals across Vermont. We find that the topic of parent-professional communications is among the top 5 reasons why people contact VFN. That really doesn't surprise us because in our experience, communication skills and advocacy, although often referred to as soft skills, are sometimes among the most difficult to master. So what is advocacy? One definition is to speak or plead the cause for yourself or for another person, to make others care. When I facilitate this workshop in person, I ask participants to define what advocacy means to them. Some of the answers I received include understanding my child's needs, helping my child to get the help they need, being the voice of the child, to speak up for the child, describing his strengths, disabilities, and needs, being the child's voice until they are ready and able to have their own voice. Self-advocacy is not our topic for today. It is, however, a very important one, and as parents, we strive to model and teach our children to advocate for themselves as best they can. Advocacy starts with the recognition that you have power. As Alice Walker once commented, the most common way people give up their power is by thinking that they don't have any. Advocates speak up for themselves or others to make things better. So why be an advocate? Parents bring their own valuable experience with their child to the table. Parents are the experts about their child. Professionals have knowledge and expertise in a specific area, but they are only a temporary part of your child's life. Professionals will pass in and out of your child's life, but you will always be the parent. Professionals deal with many children, but you only have your child to think about. A child is served best if parents and professionals work together. So what skills do you need to be an effective advocate? Clear and effective communication, which requires understanding of the process, understanding roles and rights, and stating your child's needs directly. Are you able to explain your child's strengths and challenges? Do you understand your child's disability or special needs? Do you know who the key players are for the process or system within which you are advocating? Do you know how to communicate so that you can resolve disagreements, solve problems, and come up with solutions? Consider this list. Ask yourself, which is my strongest area, weakest area? In which areas could I learn more so I can be more effective? Communicating effectively means understanding the process, understanding roles and rights, and stating your child's needs directly. It can be a good idea to bring a photo of your child to meetings so everyone remembers that the focus is the needs of the child. A common barrier to communication occurs when people are more intent on expressing themselves than on listening to and understanding others. Stephen Covey suggested that we should first seek to understand, then to be understood. By using the skills involved in active listening, we can better understand others' points of view and avoid making assumptions that will impede communication. The only person you have any real power to change is yourself. This is about you and not about them. The way you talk to others has a direct relationship to how they interact with you and perhaps what services your child will receive. The power we talked about earlier is not the same as aggression. If you behave with anger, others will likely only remember that you were angry, not that you had good points or valid requests. Here are some tips that can make a difference when you are advocating for your child. First, keep your eyes on the prize. The prize is effective services for your child. The focus should always be on the child and what the child needs and not what on you need. Listen and ask questions. Listen to others and ask any questions you have. Listening gives you information you will need. Listen to see if the speaker is sharing opinions or facts. A fact will have data or records to back up what is said. Decisions should be based on facts. Whether you agree or not, try to understand what others are saying. Vermont Family Network has many different fact sheets available for free on our website, one of which is entitled Advocating for Your Child. The first step in advocating for your child, as outlined in our fact sheet, is to identify the problem and concerns you want to resolve. You can use the basic problem-solving process by asking yourself, what's the problem? Who has the power to resolve the problem? What is the chain of command? How could this problem be resolved? If your child is struggling in school, for example, you can identify and describe a problem in a variety of ways, including these methods described in our Advocating for Your Child fact sheet. You could describe it as a statement about your child's individual problems, such as, Jill is struggling in class and with her homework, and I am concerned that she may have a reading disability and or some kind of attentional issue like ADHD. As a statement describing a larger problem, such as, there do not seem to be enough sign language interpreters to accommodate all of the children who need this service. It can be very helpful to problem solve together to find solutions. In other words, bring the problem to the discussion table. Don't bring the solution. When you're together as a group, describe the problem clearly, encourage input from all members of the team, brainstorm without evaluating the ideas, don't make judgments on how good the idea is, just list options, choose a solution by consensus, although this isn't always possible, develop a plan, define who is responsible for an action and when it will be done, put the plan in writing, create a timeline and criteria to evaluate success, and then follow up to make sure the plan is implemented. You could also state the problem by noting your areas of concern, such as procedural errors, contradictions, inappropriate goals and objectives, or the need for additional services. I can say from personal experience that thinking before you speak is often easier said than done, especially when the situation seems dire, emotions are high, and perhaps relationships are fragile or broken. I recall some things that have come out of my mouth that I later regretted, not because I felt wrong to be so emotional about my child and the situation, but rather because I later thought that a different choice of words would have led to a better outcome. Showing respect and expecting it from others builds productive, collaborative relations. I have personally found it helpful to apologize if I feel that I have been disrespectful or if I feel the relationships have been negatively impacted through my behavior. As I said earlier, the only person I can ever change is me, and no matter how much I wish the other person would learn some of the skills we've been talking about, I can't force it to happen. Before I start to sound too much like Dr. Phil, I want to reiterate that each of us must decide for ourselves what works best. I try to keep in mind the phrase made famous by Dr. Phil, which is, how's it working for you? If it's not working for me, I often try something different, either in my approach or how I decide to frame the issue or concern. The more complex and complicated the situation with our child may be, the greater need for us to prioritize and plan. The old saying, when everything is number one, nothing is number one, comes to mind. Parents find it helpful to make a list of problems or concerns, rank them, and then ask yourself which ones must be addressed. For example, issues of safety are generally at the top of the list. Are there any issues that can wait until a future team meeting or be addressed in a different way? Sometimes solving one issue resolves another related issue that can then be eliminated. Remember to include the most pressing questions on your mind in your plan. What questions can you ask that will give you more data on the situation? What do the professionals see? What are you seeing with your child? Exchanging information through open communication can build relationships and lead to better outcomes. It can be helpful to map out what you need to say by jotting down your key points or even practicing what you are going to say. What you are going to say includes important questions you want to ask of the team. I find this strategy particularly helpful when the issue is complicated or I'm feeling particularly emotional. I may think about not only what I'm going to say, but what data and information I'm going to share to support my question or position. Generally speaking, we make our best decisions when we are calm and thinking clearly. It is only natural for us to have strong emotions when it comes to our children, especially when we see them suffering and we want to help. Parents report that checking their own emotional pressure gauge before going to a meeting, writing an email, calling someone on the phone, or visiting someone in person can be helpful. For example, if you need to take a break during a meeting to catch your breath and count to 10, ask for one. Some parents find it helpful to wait 24 hours before hitting the send button on an email to give themselves a little time to reflect and to make sure that they have captured their thoughts accurately. Again, each person is different and you will decide what works best for you. The executive director here at the Vermont Family Network has a sign on her door that says, "Encourage your hopes, not your fears." All parents have fears. It's only natural since we love our children and want what's best for them. This does not mean to forget about or never mention past problems or share your fears. As a practical matter, you may be able to get more of what you want for your child if you use the limited time you may have in a meeting or at a doctor's visit to focus on your top priorities. I have supported parents at school meetings before where the parent chooses to use the entire time to discuss the past problem that no longer exists, and then there's no time to discuss the child's current needs or to problem solve as a team. Think about what you want to achieve and how much energy and time you want to spend focusing on past problems or on your worst fears. So now you're in a meeting, for example. It might be with either an education or health team. Let's talk a little bit about what you might want to think about or do during the meeting. Active listening is a process that requires the listener to feed back to the speaker about what they hear by way of restating or paraphrasing what they have heard in their own words to confirm that they have heard and, more importantly, to confirm the understanding of both parties. It's important to make sure everyone is listening to each other and not putting words into each other's mouths. Repeating and paraphrasing are ways to validate to each other that you are being heard and also to make any corrections if necessary. Documentation is always important. Not only does it help leave a trail of discussions, decisions made, and action steps, it also can provide relief to not have to worry about remembering it all. Let's face it, we all have an enormous amount to keep track of and take care of. Having a record to help remind us can be so important. If a person is designated to be note taker during your meeting, make sure you know who that person is and how and when you will get a copy of the notes. Sometimes you might want to bring someone with you to take notes for you so that you can focus on the conversation and active listening. Having a meeting is an important opportunity to be heard, so it's really important to make sure people are understanding you. But sometimes it's hard to communicate things in the best way for people to understand, whether it's because it's a complex subject, or sometimes it's just hard because it's emotional. But making sure you make your point will make you feel better when you get home. Don't hesitate to try to clarify if you think people are not understanding you. Rephrase and watch the listener's face. Likewise, when you are the listener, make sure you understand what is being said, asking questions to clarify and then repeating what you heard back to them. That's the act of listening we talked about before. They're both helpful strategies to make sure everyone is clearly hearing and understanding the same information. Preparing yourself before the meeting can help you be more active and confident during the meeting. Sometimes it's really hard to think clearly in difficult meetings, so planning ahead is often a great strategy. Be prepared to offer, suggest, and ask for alternatives to what is being suggested if that doesn't feel right to you. Doing some research ahead of time can give you some great ideas to make sure they are discussed as valid options. Presenting these ideas as an opening to a conversation, such as "how about," may bring an open discussion and allow all participants to feel they are important to the discussion and decision-making process. Remember to keep the focus on your child. Helpful phrases include, "We haven't seen the progress we all wanted. What other options do we have?" Sometimes it's easy to get sidetracked and to lose sight of the purposes of the meeting. Make sure to keep the focus on your child. Presenting options in a collaborative way is especially helpful. Try to use phrases such as "we can" versus "you should." Say "yes and" versus "yes but." Don't forget the popular belief that using the word "but" eradicates anything positive that was said prior to that word. Once you are clear on what is being said, if it is upsetting, do not hesitate to take a moment. It's okay. It happens to many of us. I know it's happened to me. Taking the time to let something difficult sit is key to being able to staying engaged in the remainder of the meeting. If you like hearing positives about your child, then think about it when working with your child's team, whether it's medical team or a team at school. So, what can you do to make sure you are effective in your advocacy? Make sure you know who is the right person to talk to about specific concerns or questions. Make sure there are agreed upon timelines. Action items can slip through the cracks for any of us. Having boundaries and a timeline helps us all stay on track and to remind each other when we are off. Check in when you are not sure what is being said or when you are not sure you are being heard or understood. Do your research ahead of time and have the facts. Maintain a team approach. Everyone should work together for the common good of your child. Try to practice empathy and see things from another perspective, and this will help you work through challenges. Ask for data such as progress reports or health visit records. Use an agenda to help stay on track. Take notes or make sure someone is taking notes. Bring notes from prior meetings with you to refer to if necessary. If there is a disagreement in the meeting, bring the discussion back to the purpose, your child's needs. Staying focused on that can sometimes help to keep the meeting on track and clear for everyone. Try to avoid blame whenever possible. Maintain the belief that everyone has the best of intentions. A quick review of what we've talked about in this webinar. We've talked about what advocacy is and hope that you can start applying its principle to some of the areas of your life that it might be helpful with. We also talked quite a bit about communication skills, which, as we all know, are very important, particularly when the topic can be an emotional one for many of us parents. Remember, there are many different kinds of advocacy, and practicing it does not have to mean you're going to work on a large-scale systemic issue. We advocate for our children from the day they are born. As Barbara Gill, a parent, reminds us, no matter what our level of activity, whether we are part of an organized group effort or are working alone in our neighborhood school to improve things for our own child, we are involved in a social and political process, and our advocacy has an impact. Please remember to contact the Vermont Family Network whenever you have questions. In addition to the items shown, we also have a lending library, information about support groups around the state, some assistance finding training and workshops, a large selection of webinars on our YouTube channel, and we also can match you with another parent if you would like that. Here are some resources on the next 2 pages. Resources include the Vermont Agency of Education, the Disability Law Project, the U.S. Office of Special Education, PACER Center, Rights Law, and a variety of health resources, including those shown on this slide. Some additional health resources include the 2 listed on this slide. Thank you for listening for our webinar today. Please give us a call if you would like a copy of this presentation or if you would like to speak to someone on our helpline. Have a great day.